people are entering into this time. It's hardship, difficulty, and so they're not sure kind of what's next. And as they are in slavery, they don't know that God is using this time to build up a nation, and so they start having a bunch of kids. And Pharaoh's looking around like, oh, this is going to be a problem. And Pharaoh is such a kind of he's a wicked guy, he's an evil guy. And he says, we cannot have this. So it's not enough to enslave them. In fact, he sends out this order to kill every single baby boy that is born. And so this is a very dark time for the Jewish people. And so the soldiers they're trying to go out and they're killing. He's giving these instructions to kill these babies. And so in this whole process, there is a baby that is born, baby boy that is born, and his name is Moses. And Moses becomes, if you don't know, he becomes a very, very important part of the Bible story. And so, Moses, he is born, and he's, his parents are worried, right? He's a baby boy, they're going to try to kill him. And so they kind of hide him for a little while, and eventually he gets too big to kind of keep quiet. So his mother builds this basket, and he builds up this basket, and they put Moses in this basket, and they put him in the Nile River, and he floats down the river, which sounds insane, right? Like to us, but they're just trying to keep their baby boy alive. And so Moses' mom tells Moses' sister, hey, kind of keep an eye on where he goes. And so they place him in the water, and he starts to float down, and he floats by Pharaoh's daughter's, the place where she would go into the river and take a bath. And so Pharaoh's daughter, she's in there, she's taking a bath, and she sees this basket floating down the river, and she sends one of her servants over to get it, and they open it up, and they realize that it is a baby boy. It's a Hebrew baby boy. And so they're like, I don't know what we're going to do. But instantly, Pharaoh's daughter takes liking to Moses, and Moses' sister, she's kind of watching from the background, and she's seeing what's going on, and she goes up to Pharaoh's daughter and says, hey, I see you found a baby. If you need someone to nurse that baby and take care of that baby until he's a little bit older, I know someone. And so Pharaoh's daughter's like, yes, go get her. So Pharaoh's daughter doesn't know who she is, but she probably knew, let's be honest. Like, it just so happens the little girl comes out, whatever. But she says, hey, go get this woman. And so Moses' sister goes and gets his mom and comes back, and Pharaoh's daughter pays Moses' mom to take care of Moses. It's a pretty good gig if you can get it. I wish somebody would pay me to take care of my kids. They don't. It costs money. A lot of money. And so a few years go by, Moses gets weaned, and they take him back to the palace. And so Moses is raised up in Pharaoh's palace. He is Pharaoh's grandson. He becomes a very important person in Egypt. And so as he grows up, he's now, he's an adult, he's grown up, and one day he's kind of out walking around, watching all that is going on, and he sees an Egyptian soldier mistreating a Jewish person. And he does not like that. And instantly this holy righteousness and anger rises up inside of Moses, and he goes over and he ends up killing this Egyptian soldier. Kind of a big deal, right? You don't do that. Even Moses, you don't do that for no reason, especially over mistreatment of a Hebrew person, right? And so Moses digs this grave, the shallow grave, he puts the soldier in there and buries it, and he thinks that he's gotten away with it. A day or two goes by, and he sees a couple of Hebrews, a couple of Jewish people fighting, and so he looks over at him, he goes up, he's like, hey, you guys should not be doing this. And one of them is a smart mouth, right? And so he's like, what are you going to do? Kill me like you did that soldier a couple of days ago? And Moses panics because he thought it was done in secret. He thought nobody knows, but now he knows at least a couple of people know. So Moses, he ends up panicking and fleeing and leaving Egypt, and he goes into this country called Midian. And there he meets a girl, right? And so he meets this girl, he marries this girl, and he becomes a sheep herder for his father-in-law. His father-in-law is kind of a big deal. He's got a big farm and lots of animals. And Moses just becomes a sheep herder for this guy. And so he's just perfectly content. He's got a family, he's got a wife, he's got kids, and he's just kind of growing up. And he's just becoming an old man, and he's got, life is good, and he's tending flock, watching sheep, until one day, Scripture says, and his story is in Exodus, and we're making some big time jumps today. So read the book of Exodus for yourself at some point to really get the full story here. But at some point, Moses is out in the middle of the desert. He's on the far side of the wilderness. And we read a story. Listen, I'm going to give a little disclaimer. I'm playing with fire this morning. Hopefully it goes well, all right? I'm not always. And so Moses is walking around in the desert, and he sees something that's kind of crazy. That was crazy, wasn't it? There you go. In Exodus chapter 3, this is what we read. We read that Moses, as he's walking around, it says, when the Lord saw that he had gone to look over, God called him from the bush, within the bush, and says, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. So Moses is walking around in the desert, and he sees a bush that is on fire, but it's not burning up. And he thinks to himself, that's weird. It would be weird, right? And so Moses, he walks over, and he sees that this bush is on fire, but it's not burning up. And all of a sudden, God starts talking to Moses outside of the burning bush. He says, hey, the place that you are standing is holy ground. Take off your shoes. Now, I need to make a little bit of a side note here. We are in a holy place. We are in God's house. Please do not use this verse like this to take off your shoes in church. Okay? Nobody needs to know this, okay, about what kind of socks you're wearing, all right? Keep your shoes on. Because I feel like I need to make a disclaimer here because my dad called me the other day. It's like, nothing new. He calls me like 2 or 3 times a day. We talk a lot. And he says, hey, guess what your dad did? I'm like, who knows, right? Like, who knows? He's like, I'm almost into Springfield, and I realize I'm not wearing any shoes. Called my mom, like, hey, do we need to get him checked in somewhere? He apparently thought his vehicle was holy ground and forgot his shoes. Listen, when you have a burning bush moment, you can take off your shoes in church. Otherwise, let's keep them on. Fair? All right? And so we had Moses is seeing this burning bush, and God says, do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place you are standing is holy ground. Then God said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. At this, Moses had hid his face because he was too afraid to look at God. So here's Moses in the middle of the desert, and he sees this burning bush. He sees God speaks to him in the middle of this, and God tells him, hey, I have heard the cries of my people. Like they've been enslaved for hundreds of years. Like I've heard them crying out, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to deliver them from Egypt, and I'm going to use you, Moses, to do it. And Moses instantly starts with, yeah, I don't want to do it. Like, I think you got the wrong guy. I think you need to send somebody else. Like, it's a good plan, God. I'm behind you. I support it. But find somebody else. I don't speak so well. I'm not the guy to do it. Find someone else. And then there's this back and forth between God and Moses about how qualified or not qualified Moses is. And Moses tells him all these things. And and Moses says, hey, like, if I do this, like, who am I supposed to tell them sent me? And God responds with one of the most boss lines in all the Bible. And he says, tell them I am sent you. I am. Like, that's a big, like, if somebody's like, I am, like, who are you? I am. That's like, yes, sir. Right? God says, tell them I am sent you. And so I have this back and forth, and God tells him that Pharaoh is going to let them go, and now all this is going to happen. And so Moses, he still isn't so sure that he doesn't believe that anybody is going to, he doesn't think that anybody will believe him. And so God at this point asks Moses, he's like, hey, remember, Moses is a shepherd. He has a shepherd's staff. Right? This is what a shepherd's staff, this is what it would look like, right? If you get a sheep out of line, you can pull them back, you won't walk, go like this. Listen, Pastor Don Miller gave me this when he installed me officially as pastor. And so, because I'm the shepherd and you're the flock. And so, I figured some of you might need a little, I'm just kidding, I wouldn't do that. And so, Moses is like, listen, God, what am I supposed to do if they don't believe me? And God says, what do you have in your hand? And Moses says, I've got a staff. And God says, hey, take that staff and throw it down on the ground. And Moses does. And when he hits the ground, it becomes a snake. Now, this is the point in the story where if it's me, I'm out. No thanks, God. Right? Because then God does something really stupid and says, hey, now pick up the snake. Nope. I'll do anything, but I won't do that, right? So Moses, he picks up the snake, and it turns back into a staff. And then God says, all right, Moses, put your hand inside your robe and take it out. Moses does so, and he pulls it back out, and he has like leprosy all over his hand and his arm. So he puts it, and then God tells him to put it back in, and he pulls it back out, and it's clean. So they have this back and forth, and we like to laugh at Moses because it's like, what kind of dummy would do this, right? Like God is speaking to you in a burning bush and you don't believe him. We love making fun of him and like Peter was walking on water. Then he had a doubt of faith, a lack of faith, and then he fell in. Listen, all of us are guilty of this. We literally have God's word that we read and we hear his voice and see his words, and yet we're like, no, I don't want to do that, God. So none of us are above this, okay? And so Moses finally, he kind of agrees to, you know what? I will do this, and God tells him, hey, I'm going to send your brother Aaron. He is going to help you, but he says, make sure you take the staff with you. Now, the rest of the story of Moses is extremely long. He goes to Egypt. Pharaoh doesn't believe him, like, I don't believe who you are. And then you have the story of, like all these plagues that God sends to show Egypt Pharaoh who he is, and all of these things. And Pharaoh, finally, he relents and lets the people go, so they load up their stuff and all the stuff that the Egyptians get, and they leave Egypt. And so a couple of days go by, and Pharaoh's like, you know what, I miss my slaves. I realize that this is going to be really hard, so he sends his army after them, and the Israelites, they panic, and they're like, they've got the Red Sea on one side, and they got Pharaoh's army behind them, and they're like, what are we supposed to do? Moses raises out his staff across the Red Sea, and it parts, and the Egyptians, or the Israelites, cross on dry ground, and then they get to the other side, and Pharaoh's army tries to cross, and God moves the waters back, and it drought. This is a whole big long story. So read the book of Exodus, all right? I don't have time to talk about all of Moses' story, because what I want to focus on this morning is the story of Moses and the burning bush. Because this story, it's one of those stories we learned about when we were really little, when we were young, when we were in Sunday school, Moses and the burning bush. And it's a great story, but it's an often overlooked story. We really don't get down into the nitty-gritty of what we can learn from this story. So that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to unpack the story of the burning bush, and we're going to pull out two truths that we can apply in our life and on a day-to-day basis to how the burning bush. Let me go turn this off before just anything happens. All right? And so from the story, we really see two things. And there's two things that I want to pull out about this burning bush and Moses' interaction with it. Something that can teach us some awesome things in our daily walk with God. And the first one is this, is in a burning bush, we cannot overlook ordinary moments. Exodus chapter 3, verse 1, it says this. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Moses starts his day just like any other day. He's a shepherd. He gets up, he takes care of sheep. He leads his sheep, he waters the sheep, he feeds the sheep, he keeps the wolves away from the sheep. It is an ordinary day. Nothing changes in his daily routine. Nothing special happens. It's a day like every other day. Moses is 80 years old at this point, and he is doing what he always does, what he's done every single day for years. But this entire story hinges on Moses meeting God in a powerful way during an ordinary day. Nothing special, no new location, no new job, no major life change. Moses is in a remote place doing the normal, mundane family businesses, and God is about to change the trajectory of his entire life, plus the entire life of an entire race of people. All of it starts on an ordinary day. All of us, we want these mountaintop moments with Jesus, don't we? We want to go to the conference and have this powerful encounter with God. We want to open up our Bibles and just get smacked in the face with something new. We want to come to church and the Spirit just fall. And it's just like, we want these incredible mountaintop powerful moments, which is good. We should absolutely be seeking those moments of a real, powerful encounter with Jesus. The problem is that while we're doing that, while we're searching for that, we're seeking for that, we overlook the ordinary, every single day walk with Jesus. The ordinary day, the order, just like everything else. We want that, we seek that, and while we should, we can't ignore the normal, the ordinary. We all want to follow God's will, correct? Right? We want to be walking in His plans for us, and I'm sure that Moses felt the same way. So how do we have a burning bush moment? By faithful obedience in the ordinary. Moses has a burning bush moment because he was faithful in the obedience and his walk of going out and taking care of the sheep every single day. What was God's will for Moses? Eventually to lead the people out of Egypt. That is what God had called Moses to do eventually. But before that, what was God's will for Moses? Water the sheep. Feed the sheep. Protect the sheep. God's call was during mundane, ordinary obedience. We think of following God's plan for our life involves something spectacular. Like, well, I got to go on a mission trip. I gotta be head of this ministry, or I gotta be a part of this ministry. I gotta get on the platform. I need a bigger stage. I need a bigger audience. We think that those are the things that God's plan for our life involves. But the reality is yes, that maybe at some point that is God's calling for you. But His calling is also to take care of our every single day life. Being faithful to take care of the sheep, to water the sheep, to feed the sheep, to protect the sheep. Faithful to go to work. Faithful to study. Faithful to take care of our spouse or our kids. We desire to be used right now. But here's the thing about right now. Right now may not be right now on God's timetable. Moses is 80. So we want to be used right now, but here's the thing is that we get frustrated or we get antsy and we think, all right, God, here I am. Do something. God has your number. He knows how to get a hold of you. And if we will be faithful in the ordinary, if we will be faithful in doing what we do every single day, eventually when your time is up, He will make it clear to you. He will give you a burning bush moment. Exodus 3 says that Moses led the flock to the far side of the wilderness. Think about it, far side of the wilderness. Moses is by himself. He is a long ways from a platform. He is long ways from a microphone. He is a long ways from everyone else. He wasn't near a big city. He wasn't in the middle of the action. Like, well, God, if you just move me into this area or give me this opportunity and I got more people that will listen to me, then I can really make an impact. Moses is by himself in the far side of the wilderness when God shows up and calls him. He was out and about doing his job. If you want to do big things for God's kingdom, you need to make sure that you're walking faithfully in the ordinary. Because that is where God will find you and call you to do something extraordinary. The other part of the story is this. Moses was 80. Now remember Noah was like 950 years old when he died? Moses is a young man. No, he's like 80 years old in today's world. Like he is an old man. No offense, 80-year-olds. Moses is old and so are you. Listen, I will always tell you the truth. I'm also going to tell you this truth. Moses is 80 years old before God calls him to do something spectacular. You are never too old to be used by God. So if you're 80 years old, don't just pass it off to somebody else needs to do this. I've done my part. No, God is not done with you. Absolutely, we should be equipping and encouraging the next generation of people and the next generation of leaders. But you don't just quit just because you get to be a certain age. Like God will use you at 80 years old. And secondly, don't rush it. Be patient. God has a calling for you, but if we try to rush it or we try to be impatient and we try to make it happen ourselves, remember the story when we have, why did I get myself into this? I'm going to forget names here. I'm stuck now. Abraham, there we go. This story, right? Remember when he's supposed to have a child and he doesn't want to have a child, Isaac, and he's like, all right, he tells Sarah that, hey, God shows up and is like, hey, you and Sarah are going to have a kid. Didn't happen. What did Abraham try to do? He tried to force it, and we got Ishmael. And we're still dealing with that thousands of years later, right? You cannot force or rush what God's plan is for you. He will call you when He is ready to call you. And He knows how to get a hold of you. Even if you have waited decades or years, sometimes the plan takes a while to develop. Moses probably thinks that his opportunity to do something great has passed him by. He didn't know that him being used by God had yet to even begin. Stay patient. Stay faithful. Pay attention in the ordinary. Don't forsake the ordinary. Be patient in the process. Be faithful in ordinary days. Not only do you qualify yourself in ordinary days, you can disqualify yourself in ordinary days as well. If you will not stay faithful in what God has called you to do right now, He may say, all right, God, you had your opportunity and you blew it. Don't disqualify yourself by forsaking or not paying attention on the ordinary obedience. Every person we have studied over these last several weeks, with the exception of Samson, they were faithful in the ordinary. They weren't seeking to do something grand. They simply said, I want to be in God's will, and right now God's will has me building a boat, taking supplies to my brother, tending sheep in the wilderness, taking care of the people around me in prison. God, I don't know what your plan is, but this is what you got me doing, so I'm going to stay faithful in doing what I'm at right now. And then God showed up, and off they went. I don't know exactly what the plan is that God has for you. But tomorrow when you go to work, realize that God's will is more. Pay attention to this. God's will is more than you just showing up and doing it. But it's not less than that. Think about it. Takes a second. God's will for you at work is more than you just showing up and doing what you're supposed to be doing. He has a bigger plan for you than just showing up and checking off some boxes. But His plan is not less than that. Stay faithful in the normal, mundane, all right, God, I don't know why you have me here. I don't know what is next, but this is what you put in front of me, so I'm going to stay faithful. I'm going to do the best job that I possibly can be right now so that I will be ready when you've called me to do something else. Whatever you're doing, take a note from Colossians chapter 3 where it says, whatever you do, work out with all your heart as working for the Lord. Accept the ordinary. Be faithful in the ordinary. Stay seeking in the wilderness while you watch the sheep. You never know when the burning bush moment is going to happen. So in Moses' story, we have ordinary moments. We also have ordinary items. In chapter 4, Moses is still arguing with God about if I'm the right guy to do this. Right? He's like a chapter and a half in, still arguing, all right, God, are you sure I'm the right guy? Are you sure you're the right guy? He still says he isn't qualified and that no one is going to listen to him. In chapter 4, verse 1, he says, Moses answered, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Now, like I said, we think this is funny that Moses would be arguing with a burning bush. Right? God, are you sure you got the right person? Yeah, God is sure he's got the right person. All right, and Moses, he doesn't know what is going on, and he's trying to figure it out. And thankfully, we serve a God who's patient and merciful. We all need that patience and mercy at times, right? God doesn't just stand there in that burning bush and start asking Moses, well, you know what? Moses, you're right. Let me see your resume. Let me see, why should I pick you? You're right, maybe. Or he doesn't start asking him leadership questions. God says, hey, I called you to do that. And in verse 2, it says, then the Lord said to him, what is in your hand? A staff, he replied. Moses looked, and he saw this, and all he saw was a simple shepherd's staff. That's all that it was to him. It was ordinary, common, just a stick to guide sheep and pull them out of danger. Maybe to fight off a bear or a wolf or to poke them along the trail to get them to go. It wasn't new, it wasn't shiny, it wasn't complicated, it was ordinary. It wasn't anything fancy or anything special. And Moses surrendered, but when Moses surrendered it to God, that ordinary staff became the instrument for miracles. This ordinary staff, this shepherd's staff, nothing special, nothing fancy. This staff turns into a snake twice. It is used when they leave Egypt to cross over the Red Sea and the waters part. They're out in the wilderness. They can't find anything to drink. And Moses takes this ordinary wooden stick and he beats it against the rock and water flows out. Twice. And they're in a battle with the Amalekites, and they're not sure they're not winning, but as long as the staff is raised up in the air, the Israelites are winning. This ordinary staff does extraordinary things because eventually at some point Moses says, you know what, God? It's yours. It's not my staff anymore. It's yours. The staff, it saw some things, it did some things. It was an ordinary, regular shepherd's staff. But in verse 20 of chapter 4, it says, Moses took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, and started back to Egypt. And he took the staff of God in his hands. The beginning of chapter 4, it's a staff. Normal staff. But by the end of chapter 4, it becomes God's staff. Because this is the whole thing about the story, is that Moses gives his ordinary staff to God, who uses it for extraordinary purposes. The power was not in the wood. The power wasn't in Moses. The power is in God. Instead of it being Moses' staff, it is now God's staff. You don't have to have something extra special for God to use you. Well, I don't have this talent. I don't have this ability. I can't talk. I'm not this. I'm not. You don't have to have something extra special. All you have to be willing to do is say, oh God, all I've got is this staff, but I'm going to give it to you. And if you will give God your ordinary staff, He will do extraordinary things, because it's not about the staff, it's about the surrender. This becomes God's staff. When Moses says, all right, God, I'm going to trust you. You tell me to throw the staff on the ground, I'm going to throw it on the ground. At that moment, God says, pick it up, and He picks it up. It is no longer Moses' staff, it is God's staff, because Moses has completely surrendered it to God. He said, all right, God, I can't do this on my own, but this is what I've got. I'm willing to give it to you. Use it how you need to use it. God's call does not depend on your confidence or your skill level. Once Moses gave himself and gave his staff to God, they become a tool for the miraculous. Whatever it is that you have in your hand, if you will give it to God, if you will truly give it to Him, whatever it is that you possess, and let God use that, He will work mightily through you. You don't have to have a special talent. You just must be willing to be used. You hear coaches say all the time, the best ability is availability. Doesn't matter if you can run a 4.340. If you're always hurt, you can't play. It doesn't matter if you have a 44-inch vertical. Right? If you're always hurt, you can't play. The best ability is availability. The same thing is true in God's kingdom. God does not care about your abilities. He does not care about your talent. All He cares about is your availability. And if you will give Him the staff, He will use it for the miraculous. What's in your hand? Your talent, your time, your testimony. When you give it to God, He can use it far beyond what you ever imagined on your own. It's not about the stick. It's about the surrender. Becomes God's staff when Moses surrenders it to God. When Moses threw it down, when he obeyed God's command to throw it on the ground. When Moses surrendered to God's will, God's command, it became God's staff. Whatever is in your hands, surrender it to God. Let Him use it for His glory and His purposes. Basically, what God is telling Moses through all this back and forth is, you already have everything that you need to accomplish the purposes that I've called you to do. I've already equipped you with everything that you need. Now I just need you to be willing to follow what the plan is. The same is true for us as well. When God created you, He created you with a purpose. And He equipped you with everything that you need to accomplish the purposes that He has called you for. You don't need more talent. You don't need more time. You don't need a fancy new staff. You take the staff that you have in your hand, give it to God, and let Him go to work. That's all you need to do. The staff in your hand, it tends sheep, and that's about it. But in God's hands, this staff in my hand, listen, not going to be used for very much, right? Maybe I'll swing it, crack a head or two or whatever. Like, if I'm a shepherd, this staff is limited in my hands. But if I already said, all right, God, here's your staff. All of a sudden, this staff splits seas, frees nations, sends plagues, delivers water, delivers victory over whatever battle you are going through. We see God's divine, unlimited power all throughout the Bible. But when you look and when you stop and look at the people who did these things, what you will find is ordinary. You will find a shepherd's staff. You will find a slingshot and a rock. You will find a donkey jawbone. You will find 2 fish that feed 20,000 people. God is the God of the miraculous, but He uses ordinary things and ordinary people who are just saying, all right, I don't have much, but this is what I got, and I will give it to you. And God says, that's all that I'm asking for. Give me your staff and watch me go to work. God is the God of spectacular, but He's also the God of ordinary. Don't overlook the ordinary. Don't look past what is right here in front of you, thinking and hoping and wishing for something shiny and flashing and new. Like, God, if I just had a better staff, if this staff was just a little bit bigger, if it was just a little bit stronger, if it was a little bit fancier, if it was made of a better wood, if I just had a bigger platform, God, if I could just if you just put me in front of somebody, I need something bigger, I need this or I need that. No, God says, what do you have in your hand? A staff. Give it to me. Watch me go to work. You don't need flashy and new. You just need to be willing and obedient to say, all right, God, it's yours. You can have it. Don't look for a royal scepter or a cloak or a crown. You might miss the shepherd's staff. Worship team, if you guys will come on up. I heard a poem from Elizabeth Barrett Browning. It says, Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit around and pluck blackberries. Now, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because I think too often it's dangerous and it doesn't disservice us. We try to apply somebody else's story to our life. Right? We take somebody else's promise and we make it my promise. We take somebody else's story like, that's me in the burning bush. No, that was Moses in the burning bush. But allow me to just go with me for a second, right? Is what if she's right? What if there are burning bushes all around us? What if everyday, ordinary life on the far side of the wilderness, what if there's a burning bush out there and we are too busy walking around like this? Too busy with our noses and our phones. Too busy with what is going on in life. And we walk right past the burning bush because we aren't paying attention. What would have happened if Moses had been like, walking? How many other people? Were there other people in the wilderness that didn't see? I don't know what how that story goes. But I do know that Moses saw it and he goes over and he says, all right, what am I going to do with it? What if we are surrounded by burning bush moments, but we are too busy in our own life to pay attention to what God is calling us to do? What if Moses wasn't the only person who could see a burning bush? What if he was just the only one who was willing to go up and do it? What if God has placed a burning bush in your life and you aren't paying attention to enough of what's going on and you miss your opportunities? In 2025, the miracle wouldn't be the burning bush that doesn't burn up, right? The bush on fire. The miracle in 2025 would be somebody stopping and paying attention and realizing that the bush is on fire but it's not burning up. That would be the miracle in today's world. But what if God has placed burning bushes all in your life and you are not paying attention to them because you're so busy doing all these other things? And you have to stop and slow down and to appreciate the ordinary. Will you stand with me? I believe that there are burning bushes in each of our lives and throughout our lives. The question is not whether a burning bush is in our life, but whether we will turn aside and respond to the call being made upon us. Burning bushes are those circumstances or events that interrupt life and it grabs our attention. They are not part of our plans. They take us by surprise. They stop us in our tracks and cause us to turn aside. When Moses stood before the burning bush, he thought he was standing in the middle of nowhere. He's like, I'm in the middle, I'm on the far side of the wilderness. I'm nowhere. And yet, where a place that he was standing was holy ground. What looked like an ordinary desert moment became a divine appointment. The staff he was holding was an ordinary staff until he gave it to God. Then it became the miraculous. God shows up in the ordinary. Today is an ordinary Sunday. There's nothing special about today. Right? There's nothing on the calendar. It's not Christmas. It's not Easter. It's not a holiday. We're not doing baptisms after service. We're not here for a baby dedication. It's an ordinary, regular Sunday. But maybe today is the day you completely surrender to God. Worship team, will you play? What if today is the day you came in here? It's an ordinary Sunday. You woke up, it's raining, kind of cold. You're just carrying your staff around. Ordinary day, nothing special. Guess you go to church. What if today is the day that you say, all right, God, here's my staff. It's yours. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. Because I know in my hands, this staff will not accomplish anything. But in your hands, it can do the miraculous. What if today, an ordinary Sunday, an ordinary moment, an ordinary item in your life, if you just gave it to God, what could he do? What would he do in your life? The burning bush story, it's a story of call and response. God calling out to Moses, and Moses is responding back to God. This call to Moses set a fire inside of Moses that did not go away. And the same God who called Moses is calling us. And he is still setting our hearts on fire. He is still using ordinary people and ordinary things to do extraordinary things. You're ordinary. I love you, but you're ordinary. I'm ordinary.